Hey there, class. What we're here to do today is to look at a piece of software that you're somewhat familiar with, and that's capstone software. And specifically, what we're going to learn about it is how to do some video analysis on the software. So over the next couple days or weeks or whatever this takes, we are going to have some things that maybe we can do through some video analysis. So clearly, the first thing you're going to want to do is open up Capstone. Now, certainly in this case, we don't have any hardware that we're going to use. So what we're going to actually do is the video analysis. So you notice over here in the middle of the screen where it says video analysis. If you're on a Macintosh, I have found that if you click on this, it tends to freeze up the program. So my suggestion is to not click here. Let me repeat that. Do not click where it says video analysis. Instead, I suggest that you go over, grab where it says movie, and you bring that over onto the screen right here. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to open up a movie file. Now, the first one that we're going to practice with, and you guys will have access to this as well, is the One Ant movie. You're going to bring that in, and of course, you can kind of resize as necessary. So I'm going to make this kind of big. Now, let's go through what this actually does. So over here, there's, again, the video analysis. Certainly you can, play the movie. Here is the adjustment of playback position, so forth and so on, and then some settings. All right, so what I want to do here is I want to enter the video analysis mode. Got to give it a moment, and it's going to bring up some new toolbars. All right. I guess one thing I should mention is you definitely want to make sure that you have the video on your actual physical computer. This will not work very well if you do not have the file on the computer. So you definitely need to make sure that you have downloaded the file to your computer. Put it on your desktop, put it in your downloads, put it somewhere. All right, let's go through the toolbar here. So as we move across the toolbar, there's a button here that enables auto tracking. This works pretty well if the contrast between the thing you're going to track and the background is very clear. As you can see, the ant is right here on the ruler. If it was going to travel along the ruler, this would work really well. However, it is also going to move over here on the other background, and I'm not sure that's going to track it very well. You can always try it, see what it does. Next thing I want to introduce you to here is your axis tool. Down here is your axis, and you can drag this around to where you want it. So let's say you want to start where the ant starts. You can say that he's at the origin right here. Next tool, and this is a very important tool, this is called the calibration tool. Basically, you need to make sure that you're calibrating your software to know what is the size of the stuff that I'm dealing with. And this is why the ruler is sitting here. So I basically take this, I'm going to put it on 1 centimeter, and let's move it down to 6 centimeters. So on my screen, going from this side of the caliper to this side of the caliper represents a total of 5 centimeters. We're going to do something with that in just a moment. In fact, we can just do it right now. So that does not represent, as you can see here in the box, it does not represent 1 meter. It does in fact represent, let's see, in meters, if it's 5 centimeters, that's going to be 0.05 meters. Okay, so this is very critical that you calibrate, because the computer doesn't know unless you tell it, how big are these things. You'll also notice, and again, this gets a little bit more in detail, but the ant is going to be, imagine this is a flat surface, which it is, but the ant is going to travel along this flat surface. Everything that you're seeing on this screen is on that flat surface. There's no depth to this picture. Okay, so this gets challenging as you get into higher level video analysis. It's not going to be something you have to worry about here. Okay, so let's just kind of recapture what we've done. We've imported the file, this file of the ant. We have calibrated it. We've set an origin point where the ant is. And next, let's go across. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, create a measurement tool. So you could, again, move if you want to measure things. In fact, let's check our calibration out. Notice here, this goes from here to here. And notice it's telling us exactly how far that is. If I wanted to measure across here, it would tell us that looks like it's about 8 centimeters there. So again, that could be a beneficial thing. You don't necessarily have to use that. All right, let me see if I can get rid of it. I don't think I want to do that. All right, you know what? I'm just going to leave it on the screen there. Next, create a tracked object. By default, it's going to have object 1. Let's see, can we rename it? I don't know if we can right here. But we're going to make the active object the ant. And I'm going to have this video just play through, and we're going to watch what the ant does. Here the ant is. I bring in my little tool to try to encourage the ant to move, and there he goes across the ground. All right. So another thing to make a mention of is that you want your videos to be relatively short. Okay, we're not importing hours of video here. Okay, that will definitely crash the system. You want to kind of trim your video down to the very critical points of the motion that you're looking at. So I'm going to back this back up to the very beginning, and I'm going to pick some point where right after I kind of encourage him, he starts to, right about here, he starts to walk off in this direction. Okay, he starts to walk off. Let's just call that east. So what I want to do is I want to track the motion of this ant. So I'm going to do that. Again, I've already created a tracked object. By default, it's going to be this. I can add more objects if I want to. If I mess up, I can delete all the points. So you notice here how I have this red plus sign up here. That's tracking that as a point. I'm not really all that interested in that, so I'm going to delete it, and it's gone. Next tool that I really recommend that you use is this magnifying tool. Okay, what this allows me to do is it allows me to magnify in on the object I'm looking at. In this case, the ant. I'm going to use the head of the ant as kind of the key point. So I'm going to click on it, and nothing seemed to happen. But if you go, well, nothing did happen. Let's try that again. Click. All right. Notice how as I move the tool off, it's moved. Okay, it's tracked this point as a point that I'm now recording. Next, let's bring it in towards the ant again. We'll get it towards its head. Okay, notice how the ant has just moved. Also take note down here where you see the time. You can see your time is advancing as well. Okay, so I'm just going to click, 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 click. Again, I'm picking the same point on the ant every single time. And as I move my tool off, you'll notice there's kind of a trace of points that we're marking. Click, click. All right, and I'm just going to follow this ant as he does his thing. And it's maybe a little tedious, but here we go. He's traveling around. And again, I'm noticing that the time is, every time I click, does seem to advance. All right, so we're going to pretend that I've followed this ant the entire way across the screen to where I wanted. So you might say, what am I going to do with this data now? So that is where this data is now stored in the computer. And if I go over here to my displays, I'm going to bring up a table. So I'm going to bring this over, drag it in, and I need to tell it, what data am I selecting? So object 1 is what I'm tracking. Maybe I want to track its X position, and maybe its Y position. I, of course, can change what I'm looking at. Like if I wanted to look at its velocity in the X direction, if I wanted to look at its velocity in the Y direction, I can do this. All right, so this allows me to look at different aspects of the motion of the ant. And again, where in a traditional setting, we would have collected this data with a motion sensor or some kind of thing like that. This allows us to do it through video analysis. So the next thing, of course, what I want to do here is I'm going to save the file. All right, so I'll save it, let's just to the desktop, and let's put my username, EMUSS, and let's call it 1ant, and we'll save that. Now again, another reason why it's important that you have small video files in here is that these files become extremely large. Not only does it have the video file in there, but then it has the data that you collected as well. So as we think about turning these things in, you don't want to be turning in, 300 megabyte files. That's, a relatively large file to be dealing with. On today's standards, of course, gigabytes and terabytes are much bigger, but let's try to keep the file sizes as small as possible. So we trim, we're going to trim down our videos to the kind of the critical motion, and we'll take a look at it that way. All right, as I go back out on my desktop, I notice here is that file that I just worked on. This would be then, of course, something that I could turn in for some kind of grading of some sort or some kind of analysis. Thanks, guys, and I hope that was beneficial. Again, this is an idea that is another idea that we're going to use as we move through these flexible instructional days. We might have you do some analysis of videos we take, or potentially take some of your own videos where you can do some analysis of your own. Thanks, and have a great day, guys.